release of Fontaine came a brand new gift from Hoyoverse. It was not a 10 pull, nor was it 3 wishes in the span of 5 days, but rather a new guaranteed character given to those who have reached AR 25, Lynette. We've struggled through Barbara, and we've tolerated Kale. So let's see how Lynette will do in her attempt to solo the game. Here are the rules. We can only use Lynette, and all swords are allowed, including 5 stars. Now let's see if we can beat Genshin Impact only using Lynette. We start our journey with a little bit of magic. After $15 mysteriously left my bank account, we got a 10 pull and managed to get the character we needed. Once we equipped her with Kaya's favorite weapon, we made our way over to Amber's temple. Seeing as how all of the guaranteed characters so far are medium women, they all had the exact same issue.
Let me in. Let me in.
But once she reached the top, she was able to glide over and miraculously reappear at the top. We then entered Kaya's domain and struggled to jump over the spikes, but once we finally made it over, we broke the crystal and noticed something weird about Paimon. Yo, her eyes! Whoa! Lastly, for Lisa's domain, Lynette established her dominance over the rest of the guaranteed crew because she was actually able to glide over and climb up the edge. I guess we now know who is the tallest short queen.
And that makes me king! See? See?
But out of all the characters we did, I actually wish I did use the invisible platform here because it would have been like a magic trick. But yeah, she suffers from success. With Act 1 completed, it's time for us to grind up to AR 10 and discuss the highs and lows of this character. Let's look at the highs first. Lynette is a sword user, which means she gets a guaranteed 4-star weapon in the prototype Rancor. And since we only use one character, we are going to be normal attacking a lot throughout this journey. So the physical damage bonus is always nice to have. Plus, her charged attacks have a very large hitbox. Like seriously, this thing is f***ing huge for no reason.
That's quite big. Impressive.
The next positive for Lynette is the fact that she's Animo. Animo is the jack of all trades, working well against most elements, but not excelling against any of them. And as for how well it does against Geo, we don't talk about Geo. Another positive would be her burst, the Cat in the Hat. It taunts enemies, swirls, and gets a massive damage increase when combined with other elements. This is the best burst we've had so far, and I think this cat deserves a treat. Lastly, Lynette's skill does a surprising amount of damage, and it's really good for moving around. Medium females are the 4th fastest character types in the game, but because of Lynette's ability, we don't really have to worry about speed that much. Now for the negatives. Lynette's ability. This ability has its strengths, but it does have some drawbacks to it. This ability is just a worse version of Yolan's in almost every way. Lynette's is slower, doesn't last as long, and targets just one enemy. But even that last point is iffy, because this move likes to miss for some reason. I don't know how, because it has a targeter, but somehow this move manages to find a way to not hit whatever it's going for. Like, how in the hell did I miss this Ruin Guard? This ability also drains your HP, but at the same time, if you hit an enemy, you recover some health back. So essentially, it accomplishes nothing. The next downside would be her normal attacks. They just feel off. I don't really know how else to describe it. They just feel so weird to me. Overall, this character isn't great, but she's not bad. She's on the edge of mid, leaning into good. But that's fine, because she was still able to get us to start Act 2 of Mondstadt in just 4 hours.
4 hours!
We ascended our weapon, but not Lynette, because that would require us going all the way over to Fontaine just to get her materials, and I'll be honest, I did not feel like doing that. Our first obstacle for Act 2 is the Eye of the Storm, and Lynette fared off a lot better against this thing than the last Animo Sword character we had to use. I mean, just look, we were able to hit this thing when it was barely on screen. I told you this move's vertical hitbox is absurd. Next was the Fatui hideout, which we were able to successfully infiltrate and deal with the agent. We put our cat down to use his bait, and since it completely tracks the agent's location, he just got hard countered. This was not his hand. After that, we head over to the Ruin Guard to collect the tears. When we have our abilities up, we do a surprising amount of damage, but when they're on cooldown, our normal attacks feel pretty lackluster. And yes, I know the Ruin Guard has physical resistance. This sentiment still applies to other enemies. Following the Ruin Guard's defeat, we picked up the next 2 tiers in the Forest and Domain, then finished Act 2 of Mondstadt. Once we slowly took down the Hydro Mage's shield, we began the fight against Dvalin. Lynette did not do great against Dvalin, mainly because her ability is on a fairly average cooldown and her normal attacks do not do much damage. However, she was able to land a cheap shot on him with this plunge attack. After 2 minutes, Lynette beat Dvalin and we were finished with Mondstadt at 5 hours and 40 minutes. On our way to AR-23, we encountered many a wacky hijinks. The Holy Liar! Oh, whoa.
I think I feel a song coming on.
The main point of note was the journey to the Ascension. Remember earlier how I said,
Nah, I don't really feel like it.
well, that issue was fixed because Hoyoverse gave us a waypoint to teleport to after Mondstadt's Archon quest.
Ain't that swell?
We were now finally able to ascend our Lynette up to level 40 and unlock a passive that is completely useless to us. At just under 9 hours, we hit AR-23 and started the first act of Liwei's Archon quest. To begin, we traverse over to Mooncarver and take on some goons with his power. After finishing the last enemy with a nice little combo, we went over to Cloud Retainer's domain. Lynette must not like being compared to Barbara because, once again, she towers over Barbara with her verticality by making it up the tree on her first try. Then we make it to Mountain Shaper, and just to pour salt into the wound, Lynette breaks the amber without having to resort to any outside interference. Rex Lapis assassinated at the rite of dissension? Lastly, we had Zhao and the Ruin Hunter. The main thing we learned about this is the damage potential of Lynette's skill, because she actually hit 1k damage here, which puts her among the elites of our solo characters at this point in the run. With the end of this fight, we were finished with Act 1 and could begin our journey to AR-25. After about an hour, we reached AR-25, ascended our weapon, and entered the original Ascension domain. This gameplay was recorded in 4.0, which means she was the last of a dying breed of characters who had the honor of fighting Aleph. So how well does Lynette do in this environment? Can she handle the heat, or does she need to leave the kitchen?
And get out!
Well, for the most part, she does pretty well. Thanks to this Pyro Archer on the outside, we were able to infuse our burst with fire, which is much better than using the plain Animo burst. She was also able to corner trap this Fatui agent, and our little cat in the hat only made it worse for the poor guy. This cat has done a lot for us in here. We should give her a treat. But wait, haven't we already given you one?
Did you eat a treat from right here? No. So why they saying you ate a treat if you ain't eat a treat from? Did you eat? I'ma ask you again. Did you eat a treat from right here? No. All right.
But now it's time for the main event, the real test. How well does she do against Aleph? In terms of dealing damage, she does perfectly fine, but she struggles a lot with the resurrection phase. Her skill does very little damage to it, and it's on such a long cooldown that we can only use it twice during this period. So that means we have to use our burst. By combining our burst and skill, we are just barely able to squeeze out one of the prisms. So essentially, we can only damage it with our skill, so that way we can get particles. Because if we attack with our normal attacks, the revival phase gets triggered and we can't do anything to it.
I don't want to play this anymore.
With little under 2 minutes to spare, Lynette was able to bring down Aleph, and as a reward, we get a constellation for our Lynette. Not from the wishes, of course, but instead from the event tab that gives us one for reaching AR-25. And let me tell you, Out of all the constellations I've seen, this is definitely one of them. Once we leave the Ascension domain, we head back over to Fontaine and use the public transportation so we can actually fight Lynette's boss. The first time I did this boss battle, I actually died, and I thought that this boss was going to be a pain in the ass. Dude, this boss is a pain in the ass. Until I realized that all you have to do is stand here on the edge when it does this move and you'll be fine. It is pretty boring, but hey, it works. And to spare us from the pain, we got 2 drops out of this. Yes! Woo! After leveling up Lynette to level 50, we finally started Leeway Act 2. We made our way over to the cooking pot, but something was off. Our elemental skill wasn't warming up the pot. This is not supposed to happen, and I know this because Animo Traveler was able to work on this section. So I knew for a fact that Lynette should also be able to do this. My gamer senses started tingling. I knew something was up. I was able to make my burst pyro by using the fire over here, but it barely warmed up the pot, so there was no way that strategy was gonna work. But then I remembered something. When I started this quest, it was raining, which put out the pyro flowers underneath the pot. And since they weren't lit, we were not getting the pyro swirl. There was only one solution.
Rage quit.
By resetting the game, thankfully, the pyro plants underneath the pot turned back on and we were able to light up the rocks. Next, we entered the teapot and almost got screwed over by these platforms again. What? Then we took out some treasure hoarders by the ballista and finished Act 2. For Act 3, we started off by activating the Animo device, then we infiltrated the back lines.
It'll be fast. In and out.
On our way to the next section, I encountered a very strange coincidence. Someone named Ether without an A and a Lumine without the E.
Coincidence? I think not!
Those people were in cahoots, trying to conspire again. After conducting a federal investigation, we sang to some flowers. Next up was the battle against Child. Now this is a pretty big deal considering we're going against one of our superiors. Let's see how this goes. With the Child defeated, it's now time for us to defend the city. Even though she doesn't have pyro or cryo, Lynette fared pretty well in this battle because her skill hits like a fucking truck. And combined with the Adeptal buffs, she might as well be an actual truck. As the fight drew to a close, Lynette finished Leeway at 15 hours and 34 minutes. Putting her only 15 minutes behind Bennett, and I gotta say, that's pretty impressive.
Impressive. Very nice.
Let's see Lynette's Dainsliff run. Once we started the Dainsliff quest, we came across 2 Hydro Abyss mages that Lynette quickly dispatched of. Now this is efficiency, but can she keep up this momentum? The answer to that is yes, actually. While Lynette doesn't do well against the Hydro Herald, she made pretty good time with the Abyss Mage fights. This section taught me that Lynette actually excels in fights with multiple enemies because of the swirl she can use from the skill and the burst, which is why we could easily destroy Abyss shields. Aside from the Herald shields, those are still a pain in the ass. After finishing the domain, it was now time for Lynette to face Osile, in which she chose to end this quickly with an all-out attack.
This is a holdup! Beat him up!
And with these results, we were able to start Inazuma at 17 hours and 40 minutes. As we began the transport mission, I was reminded of what our first constellation actually does. Jarvis, enhance. You see, if you pay just close enough attention, you will notice that this person was actually pulled towards us. Yeah, we got it after doing the AR-25 domain, but this was actually the first time I noticed it. Next, we cleared out the prison and started Act 2 by taking on
The almighty right and
This fight wasn't too hard. The main thing we had to look out for was our own skill. We couldn't just spam it because of the health drain. I also learned that for her burst, there is in fact a little spotlight on the cat, so it does match her voice line.
Here's the spotlight!
Once the fight concluded, it was time for the archery demonstration. Now, can Lynette break the targets? Yes, but can Lynette break all of the targets?
Pressure getting to you?
Yes to that, also because of magic. You know, because her brother uses a bow, and you know that old saying about twins, how they can read each other's thoughts and they also share the same archery skills. It's a saying that goes all the way back into the medieval times. It's a crazy world out there. Next was the fight against Sara's men. Nothing interesting happened here, I just wanted to show you this dodge because it was pretty cool. It reminded me of bullfighting.
That's my son.
With the end of Act 2 comes the beginning of Act 3 and the Electro puzzle. Lynette could do this puzzle if there was no time limit.
That fucking time limit! That mother sucking time limit! It's not even like there's a counter. It's like the game just pulls the plug. Like, oh, you're gonna win?
Her cat can become Electro, but it can't get all 3 of the pillars in the time needed without using a little bit of magic. After making Tepe disappear, we make our way over to the Delusion Factory. We've been consistently hitting over 1k damage with our skills since AR-25, but in this area, we managed to get a new high for Lynette at this point with 2k damage. I'm not trying to burst her bubble, but it still does not compare to Bennett's 5k earlier. Overall, the factory was not difficult for Lynette, since groups of enemies are to her what bosses are to Chi-Chi. Those who watch that video will understand, and for those who haven't yet, you will. Once we finish off the last of a bloodline, we reach the next obstacle in our path, Senora. Let's just hope this Harbinger put up a better fight than the last one.
Trip on us.
She did! After about 5 minutes, it was time to fight.
The old mighty Raiden Shogun.
What the scala?
And the Muso no Hitotachi.
I'm not gonna lie, she was putting the hands on us for the first half of this fight, but you know how these things go. It doesn't matter how strong you are if the plot is against you. Thanks to Faith being on our side, we finished Inazuma at 21 hours and 33 minutes. The next thing for us to do is the Chasm Quest. Huh? Before we enter the depths, we had to take down a Hydro Abyss Herald, and at this point, Lynette is just out for blood against Barbara, because just like Barb's, Lynette also used the Electro Mage to her advantage in this fight, which, let me tell you, it did a lot more for Lynette than it did for Barbara. So much so that Lynette finished this bout in 1/10 of the time it took Barbara. But now we can start the Dainsleif quest, and what a show of blatant disrespect put on by Lynette towards Barbara again. She continues to establish dominance over the Hydro Herald as if she's trying to signal to Barbara that she is an ant beneath her boot.
You're an ant beneath my boot!
But when it comes to the Electro Herald, it seems that Barbara is still showing some life after beating it 3 minutes faster than Lynette. Barbara's joy doesn't last for long though, as Lynette returns to her forte with the double Abyss Mages. And to top it off, she is able to destroy the batteries. Please just stop, Barbara's already dead. That was the last Barbara comparison. Once we finished the quest, we grinded out both our boss and scrolls until we reached AR-35 and could ascend our character, which gave us a pretty okay passive. As for the AR-35 domain, it went largely the same as the 25 one. However, we did lose more time dealing with Aleph in this run because I messed up on one of the earlier prisms. How garbage is this game? Are you kidding me? And this next part isn't in the script, but I just realized this. This will be the last time the old Ascension domain is ever in one of my videos. So I just want to take a second here and thank you for the memories, like spending 4 hours trying to beat Aleph with Lisa and spending over 2 hours with the level 1 characters. It's gone after this.
Thanks for watching.
At 25 hours into this playthrough, Lynette began the first act of Sumeru, which did put her an hour behind Bennett, as well as falling behind Kaya. But she has done very well in this journey. In the Withering Zone, our charged attacks came in very clutch against these flying fungi, especially since our skill could not hit them. When it came to Act 2, I usually don't show anything here besides a meme ignoring it.
Get this guy out of here.
but the only reason I'm mentioning it here is because of Lynette's death stare towards Dunyarzad. This is the face of a killer. In Act 3, we once again got reminded that we do in fact have a pool now. Then we took on the Wolf Clan. The whole gimmick with these enemies is that they do damage over time, but little do they know,
he's never fought me.
She loves to live in pain, so these fools didn't realize they were only making her stronger.
Yes, you can hurt me as much as you want. The pain will only make me stronger. Okay, that's a pretty creepy thing to say.
Following one of the worst sentences I've ever said in my life, we began Act 4 and made our way over to the hospital. After dealing with some biggie churls, it came time for us to face the Dendro Pillars. We used the same strategy as every non-Dendro character for this, but since our truck mode makes us go zoom, we never had to stress about the 30-second time limit. The next thing Lynette needs to do is the Pyramid Domain, and as we've already established, when it comes to enemies that fly,
They fly now! They fly now!
Lynette has no problem knocking them back down to earth. Now that we finished Act 4, it's time to begin the original final act of Sumeru. Lynette suffered her first death in combat, thanks to a 3-member team wombo combo from the Pyro Sniper, Electro Hammer, and our stupid-ass skill that hurts us. Why?
Wow.
The next stop was the factory. Inside, we had to play Ring Around the Rosie with the Cryo Gunner, because he would not move out of the way and this platform takes so long to get here. As we made it to the last of the enemies, I started to notice that Lynette's damage was beginning to fall off. She was still hitting over 1k damage, but she never really grew past that phase. It was weird. She stagnated. After watching a Christmas episode during the initial recording date of September, it came time to fight Scaramouche.
Come!
It went the exact same as everyone else's, but as we got to the nuke part of the fight, Lynette unfortunately could not damage the turrets. Of course she could hit it because just look at this move, but she could not damage them. So she got struck by
Awakens!
As for the polluted zone, we came across the wolf enemies, but little do they know,
Well, he's never fought me.
Yeah, he has.
He's never fought me twice.
so they still haven't comprehended that we enjoy the pain. But not that much, because when we landed on the ship, the burn combined with the damage from our skill hurt like a bitch.
Whoa, 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 hey, 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 hey.
31 hours into this playthrough, Lynette finished Act 5, which puts her on track for Karibert. The tricky part about this quest is lighting the bonfire. Lynette is similar to Animo Traveler, in the sense that whenever they get hit by an element, they become that element. Or in this case, the cat becomes that element. Because of this relationship, we were able to bring a Pyro Whopper Flower down the hill, get shot by its artillery, and use our Pyro Body to make our cat a fire cat, then light the bonfire. Let's go! The other noticeable part of this quest is the old domain with the Cryo Herald. Since we only have Animo, Lynette only did okay against it. Like I mentioned earlier, Animo is okay against everything, so this fight still took longer compared to other characters. Thou hast reaped what has been sowed. With the domain done, we were finished with Sumeru at 32 hours and 33 minutes. And I gotta give Lynette her flowers, because she is doing the best out of the guaranteed characters so far. She is zooming right past the competition. In order for us to reach Fontaine, we didn't do anything special. Just grinded bosses and did the Trial Ground of Thunder until a couple hours later where we reached AR40. Act 1 of Fontaine required us to dampen some flowers, which Lynette had no issue doing because of the cat.
So that was a fucking lie.
During Act 2, we did some diving and wished for the first time on Beginner Banner. Looking back, this made me very happy because I have so much love for Beto after doing the no healing challenge. You'll learn more about that in the next video. As for the combat here, we use the same strategy throughout this entire playthrough. Get hit, run into the burst, profit. To start Act 5, we ascend up to level 80, then head into the depths. The Hydro Rogue was actually our ally in the battle.
Hello, Zuko here.
It turned this into a 2-on-2 because its hydro powers turned our cat into a water cat.
Hey guys, did you know that in terms of male human and female Pokemon breeding, Vaporeon is the most—
So the Ruin Guard was probably pretty pissed about that.
Are you kidding me?
Lastly was the Whale, in which Lynette got a new damage high of 2.5k. After declining an invitation from one of my spare accounts, we were finished with Fontaine. After 42 hours, 11 minutes, and 45 seconds, we beat Genshin Impact only using Lynette. Back in September when this was first recorded, I was pretty excited to use Lynette, and for the most part, I'd say she did pretty good.
Not bad, kid.
Solo-wise, this is a very solid character. I've never used her in a team, so I don't have any comments regarding that. But let's go ahead and give her a rating to see if she is the best guaranteed character so far. Spoilers, it's a yeah. Damage. I would give Lynette a 4 for damage. Her skill hits like a truck in the earlier portions of the game, but she seems to stagnate around the AR 35 to 40 range. The burst is really good for AoE, but I was still waiting for her to reach that next level. Exploration. I would also give Lynette a 4 here. Normally being a medium female would give her a 2, but since her skills and movement speed increase and she's animo, she can do a lot of things in the open world while also moving quickly. Sustain. I think Lynette gets a 3 for this. She can heal, but it also comes at the cost of losing health, so it's just fine. But the ult does have a taunt, which helps her survivability. Boss fights. Lynette gets a 3. She's just solid, doesn't do horribly, nor does she overperform. She is perfectly alright.
I'm perfectly alright.
Ability/utility. I'll give her a 4. The skill is good for moving around, and the ult can add another element, which is good for damage and exploration while also taunting enemies. Overall, Lynette gets a 19 out of 25, giving her a B, while ending with an unbuffed damage high of 2.6k and buffed being 3.4k. As of now, Lynette is the queen of solo guaranteed characters. She has shown that she is more than capable of staying in the kitchen, but we've still got one more person who thinks she can handle the heat.